Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Brendan Jackson, Director of Marketing at DialogTech, and we're excited to have you with us today for this webinar, The Click-to-Call Revolution, New Digital Marketing Strategies to Drive Sales. Joining us today on this webinar is also going to be the folks at Forrester, who will be offering some great insights as well. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is introductions about who you're going to be speaking from today. First of all, we'll be hearing from Collin Colburn, who is an analyst at Forrester, who handles the B2C marketplace. Susan Bryant, CMO at DialogTech. Myself, Brendan Jackson, Director of Marketing at DialogTech, and Kelly Schultz, who's our digital team lead at DialogTech. We're going to be talking a lot about marketing and calls in the post-digital world, digital marketing tips to drive calls, a lot about call attribution and tips around there and how you can really use call attribution as part of your overall marketing strategy. And then finishing up with some real-world examples about how some of our customers have used call attribution to be more successful in their businesses. Also, as we move through here, if you have any questions, please make sure to drop them into the question box within the interface, and we'll have some time at the end for us to answer some of those questions. So moving right along, I want to introduce Collin Colburn, who is going to be kicking us off here and leading the next level of the discussion. Collin, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Brendan. Thanks, and hello everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to start today by talking about a random number, number 18, and this number could mean a lot of things. But when thinking about a conversation about competitive strategy, the number 18 actually does mean something. It's the average lifespan that a company has on the S&P 500 today. And when we look at this chart here, the data shows how significantly the lifespan of a public company has declined since 1958. Public companies have a 1 in 3 chance of being delisted in the next 5 years. And that could be because of things like bankruptcy, liquidation, M&A, or many other causes. That's 6 times the delisting rate of companies 40 years ago. And the rise in mortality applies regardless of the size of the company, how old the company might be, or the sector or vertical that the company lives in. Now I want to look into why does the outlook for companies today look so bleak? And that's because technology has changed the way that people, the way that our customers live, work, and spend. Empowered customers are causing a seismic economic and market shift. They're reshaping industries, they're creating winners and losers, and they're forcing businesses to evolve or eventually perish. There are big consequential decisions that we need to make. And we, as business and technology leaders, are charged with reorienting our organizations around the customer in order to win, serve, and retain customers at a time where risks have shifted from being first to market to being late to market. And I mentioned empowered customers just a minute ago. And technology is indeed that shift that's empowering customers. But it's also made customers very entitled. This means that we have excruciatingly high expectations when interacting with a brand on any level. In fact, 18% of consumers tell Forrester that they expect to get what they want at their moment of need and in context. And we refer to our constant connection with technology into the digital world as being always addressable. Forrester has conducted a survey in North America for the last several years that looks at this phenomenon. A positive response to this survey means that you as a consumer connect to the internet with 3 or more devices, you connect to the internet several times a day, and you use a phone or tablet device when you are away from home or the office. In 2011, just over half of Americans self-reported as being what we call always addressable. And last year, that number jumped to nearly 2/3. And this hyperconnectivity is not just a millennial statistic that I think we all get a little bit too riled up about. As you can see from the data here, boomers are also comfortable using technology in their everyday lives. And younger boomers use almost as many connected devices as Gen Zers do, or millennials as we often like to call them. This usage of mobile devices has led Forrester to define what we call the mobile mind shift. And the mobile mind shift is the expectation that I can get what I want in my immediate context and moments of need. But these moments aren't unique to just mobile. Have you ever thought or had a discussion in your own organization about who owns the customer? Well, the truth is, nobody owns the customer, but somebody always owns that moment. That moment could be pre-sale, viewing an ad, using a product, or even requesting service, customer service. And the reason that nobody owns the customer is because technology has democratized brand interactions. Now, I know that's a little bit hard to understand, so let me show you what I mean here. We all know that social media gave customers a place to rant or vent. But now entitled customers can use new applications like Facebook Live to stream live brand interactions. Yep, that means that every one of your difficult customer interactions can be exposed and live streamed for public commentary. And a good example here is from Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, which is an online political and social commentary program. In his live streaming, he records 4 different videos of his experience with American Airlines at LAX when he was waiting for a delayed flight. The in-airport flight representatives and their get-out-of-my-face hand gestures that you can see became the American Airlines brand for the thousands of people that were watching Uygur's feed. And that's just a good example of how today the boundaries between digital and physical have blurred so much. There are no boundaries between these two anymore. But at the same time, the digital distinction has somewhat dissolved. 22% of consumers stream television programming to watch any time via mobile devices. But is that digital? Do we consider that digital? And does it even matter? Does it matter that we classify one thing as traditional and one thing as digital? But how about this example? Using their mobile phones, Korean consumers can buy their groceries off interactive displays on the sides of subway cars. And then the groceries get shipped directly to their homes. And of course, the Internet of Things, which embeds digital into physical devices and provides brand access to customers and customer data, all in a much more robust and intimate way, that enables us to plan our businesses smarter and improve the customer experience. An example here comes from a Texas utility company called TXU. They use smart meters to track actual electricity usage. And from this data, TXU has created usage-based pricing, and consumers have adjusted their consumption habits to help them save energy and costs. But most marketing habits haven't kept pace with this new changing world that I just walked us through. Media planning and budgeting today is principally based on frequency. And that's an approach that made sense in the age of distribution during the 1960s, when media only reached end customers during either their morning commute or their evening TV hour. But now that level of frequency just barrages people with too many ads. Messages, and when you layer on top of this the idea that messages are still primarily designed to the lowest common denominator, or audiences, even though they can be customized or personalized. And consider this, 86% of all marketing investment today still goes towards advertising. Even though consumers tell us that they distrust our ads and that creating contextual experiences across the customer lifecycle is a better approach. But at the same time, efforts developed in response to digital technologies have emphasized the performance of specific channels, potentially at the expense of how well they work together. And this came out of the age of information because of the introduction of the click-through. But this also perpetuates a false sense of precision. A customer is not the same customer from moment to moment or context to context. So tracking things like customer purchase paths or attributing revenue and creating lookalike models cannot account for all of these possible scenarios. And digital marketing doesn't manage for complex human nature. In fact, I think we as digital marketers have reduced our customers to targets that we think are going to respond in a certain way to a particular offer based on a desired performance goal. But the reality is that we as humans, as people, are complicated and irrational even, and we make 95% of the decisions based off of emotional factors, not based off of rationale. And those things are the things that algorithms cannot account for. So neither set of these practices that we hold today are adequate for today's climate. And what you need to do to move past these legacy habits is that you need to think differently. In fact, you need to change your mindset. And we call this post-digital marketing. And post-digital marketing doesn't need more technology or a host of new processes or things for us to manage on top of what we're already doing. In fact, if you balance the best of all of your previous practices in a way that's never been done before, you can throw out all the things that are no longer applicable. But in order to do this, you need to think differently about the world, the marketing function, and the role that you play at your own organization. And we talk about this in a set of three. It's our belief that you as a marketer, your job, your new charter, is to be these three characteristics: human, helpful, and handy. Now, human here means to treat customers as actual people, to be empathetic and authentic in every interaction you have with customers. The second thing is to be helpful, to literally solve customer problems. And the third is to be handy, and that means to flex to customer situations or market fluctuations. So this is your new charter, these three characteristics. But in order to take on this charter, I think you need to think about the marketing function more holistically than just as advertising. Now, I have a couple examples of each of these characteristics so you can think about them a little bit more in depth. First is to be human. And again, this is all about treating your customers as people by being authentic, empathetic, and inclusive. An example here comes from Lucy's List, who I think gives us a really good example for how to do this. Lucy's List is the ultimate resource for every question about every topic, product, and resource related to becoming a new parent. And Lucy's List is authentic. Its product reviews include both the good and the bad and feature real-life stories from real moms and their real babies. In fact, Lucy's List was created by a mom for moms. So it has a very inclusive and empathetic feel to it. The second H here is to be helpful. And this means quite simply to solve a customer pain point. A good example here comes from UK-based manufacturer Deluxe. And Deluxe blends interactive and in-person resources, yes, actual humans, what we're talking about here, with in-person resources. And they blend those things together into an inspirational design service that they call Amazing Space. And what Amazing Space does is it's actually a test that you can take on Deluxe's site to figure out what a new renovation of a room or your entire home could look like based on what you like, your needs, and the things that you have in your home. The third H that you need to consider is to be handy. You need to be dexterous enough to cooperate productively in order to thrive in a changing market and accommodate your customers' dynamic needs. Marketers at Red Roof Inn do this well. They work with design and construction colleagues to align their hotel room design, all based on customer insights. Aaron Stenhoff, who's the VP of Marketing over at Red Roof Inn, says it best. He says, if I'm going to say this is who we are, I better make darn sure that this is actually who we are. So let me say again, in order to become what we're calling a post-digital marketer, what you need to do is change your mindset. And I'm going to give you a few examples of what's different in a post-digital world versus how we think of marketing today. We as marketers primarily serve our purpose today around what media should we be buying. But a post-digital marketer should answer, how can I solve customer problems? And program management today is largely based on what next offer is going to drive a customer purchase. But post-digital marketers wonder, how can I reduce the stress of my customer's decision process? And finally, marketing measurement today largely tracks how many impressions or clicks did my campaign drive. But a post-digital marketer evaluates, have I consistently demonstrated my brand promise everywhere? Now, it's hard to develop a post-digital orientation, and that's because the world has changed, but we have not shifted our mindsets with that change. And I think the best way to actually become a post-digital marketer is by using calls as a segue. And there's a few different reasons that I think calls and call tracking and the call center are the best way to become post-digital. And the first reason is because calls are human. This is where your brand and its employees get to actually speak in a live conversation. Mobile searches alone generated 30 billion phone calls to businesses in 2013. And that number is expected to jump to 73 billion by 2018. And this is just for mobile searches alone. But when we think about digital, the digital age that I just walked us through, why are people calling more in this digital age? Well, it's that human element. People like talking to other people. In fact, Forrester's own data shows that 59% of U.S. online adults say that they have had a pleasant phone call experience with a customer service rep in the past month. The second reason is because calls are helpful. They can solve customer pains in a big or a small way. AllConnect is a cable provider, and they use click-to-call in their advertising and on their homepage to help confused prospects better understand their TV and internet packages. so that people could understand what were the bundles that AllConnect was offering. And a hospital network that we spoke with, they had a clunky mobile website that was getting in the way of customers scheduling an appointment. So they used click-to-call ads to cut the landing page experience completely out and direct customers straight to the call center to get appointments scheduled. And calls are also handy. And like I said before, a key element of being handy is that the brand is able to flex to customer situations and lead to being a trusted brand. Starwood Hotels targeted last-minute bookers with paid search ads using click-to-call functionality. And they were targeting these bookers by mobile devices because they figured that people were on the go. So they saw a 20% growth in mobile bookings from this campaign alone. And Red Roof Inn, another hotel chain, took it a step further. They tapped into traffic data, so when congestion began to increase on the roads in areas where they had properties, they increased their bids on paid search ads and fired click-to-call ad extensions for the drivers that were stuck in traffic near their properties. So now I hope you understand that calls can actually be the segue to becoming what we're calling a post-digital marketer. But I think the recommendations for you to take home as you think through the call experience is that generally we need to be better connected as marketers to the call center. I speak with many marketers who don't even know who owns the call center or where the call center even lives within their organization. And with using click-to-call in either advertising or on your home pages, we can expect that you're going to see a pretty good increase in new leads and new phone calls. So I have 3 recommendations for you. One is to staff based on call demand. Click-to-call campaigns will change the traffic patterns to your call center, and it's going to force a change to either your open hours or your headcount. The best evidence that you need a staff shuffle is going to be based on call volume and how quickly a customer connects to an agent. 15% of callers hang up after waiting more than 40 seconds without speaking to someone. So if that sounds like your situation, that's probably how you should test for new hires to be put in place for the call center. Second is that calls are not just for purchases. Not every caller is going to be ready to buy. So I think this is where we as the marketer can be the educator for the call center. The call center agent plays a critical function in migrating customers through the decision process they make. And we're the ones that should be tasked with spearheading the customer life cycle and a training session with the call agents. This can be things like how to identify different stages of the customer life cycle through specific keywords, or creating guidance for what to say in certain circumstances depending on where the customer is in their life cycle. Progression, who's a consumer credit reputation manager, found that by tailoring their call center scripts to keywords that were used in its ad copy, that helped boost their mobile sales by 221%. And I think the final recommendation that I have for you all is to use that call center data to inform broader marketing plans. The tone, pace, or word choice of a caller can provide better evidence of emotional states that customers have than digital behaviors can. And firms that are going to be able to create an emotional connection with customers are going to have an advantage in the post-digital world. We spoke with a major bank, and they used speech analytics to identify disgruntled callers. And they used that information to target particular offers and particular agents, call center agents, to those disgruntled callers before they even called in, so that they were more likely to solve the problem that they might have had. So I'd like to leave you with this quote from the learnings of my talk today. And it's from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." So remember that in a post-digital world, that it's very important to do what you say. Thank you very much. And so back over to Brendan and you guys at DialogTech.
Thank you so much, Collin. That was really great stuff, really insightful. At this point, I want to pass it over to Susan Bryant, who is the CMO here at DialogTech. I also want to just remind everyone real quickly, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them into the question area, and we will definitely get to all the questions that are coming in at the end of the webinar. We got a lot of great questions so far, and looking forward to many more. Susan?
Yeah, thank you, Brendan, and thanks, Collin. Really appreciated your info. Kind of to put that in perspective, a post-digital marketer really needs to consider managing and optimizing that journey of the caller. To Collin's point, you want to make sure that you are actually empathizing with where they're at in their journey. And just to kind of give you some additional information, people call throughout the journey. They're not just calling at the end when they want to make the purchase. So if you kind of look through this, 30% of consumers who are in the point of just considering thinking about doing research are calling. 52%, over half of them, are calling while they're in the midst of researching. And then at the point of purchase, 62% of those consumers are picking up their phone and or clicking click to call on their mobile. Post-purchase, we're also seeing that 40% of the interaction with your customers at that point are being done over the phone. So the consumer's journey has a call experience throughout the journey, and as a post-digital marketer, you want to make sure you're considering it and you're optimizing off of it. And why does that matter in the front end of that journey? There's data that will support when consumers make a call, the conversion off that call is 10 to 15 times the conversion that you would get from a web lead. And you can imagine when they're clicking to call and they're actually raising their hand to talk to you, they're clearly intentionally wanting to hear information from you to make that purchase. $1 trillion of consumer spending this year is being influenced with phone calls into businesses. So I wanted to step back a minute and try and consider for a second, why are consumers actually calling? What is happening out there to actually drive them to call? I think you can kind of think of it as consumers are mobile first, right? They are more than or nearly half of all shopping journeys, as I just mentioned, are including a call from a mobile phone. If you look at some of the stats, over 50% of those searches are on mobile over 50% of searches being done are being done on mobile phones. 87% of the access to Facebook is being done on mobile phones. 60% of digital media time is on a mobile phone. And then 66% of emails are being read on mobile phones. So the mobile first strategy is really consumers are mobile first. And you can imagine then marketers are responding to that by moving their spend over to the mobile world. In 2016, this year alone, over 74% of ad spend of digital ad spend is being focused on mobile digital ad spend. 63% in search is being spent on mobile. 84% of folks who are spending on Facebook is spending in mobile, and 67% of the display world is being spent in the mobile space. And this isn't just any one specific vertical. It is across a number of verticals. I won't go through all of these for you, but a few that kind of stand out. In travel, 35% of hotel bookings are being booked via phone calls. Every time I mention that, people go, "Are you sure there's so many online sites to help with booking?" People still want to make a phone call to book that. 40% of insurance is happening over phone calls. 56% of patients are calling to book their appointments. It's across industries. It's not anything in particular. And as Collin mentioned, it's also across age groups. There aren't any age group that in fact highlights the experience. So in this world of the click-to-call revolution, you're getting a sense that when you're on your mobile phone, rather than trying to fill out a web form, consumers are starting to click to call much more frequently. That is driving billions of calls. Collin mentioned the 2013 numbers moving up to the 162 billion calls that are expected to be generated into businesses in 2019. Just looking at 2016, over 40 billion calls from search are being generated. Over 12 billion calls from Facebook, and again over 28 billion calls off of display ads. So when in fact consumers see your message on their web or on their mobile phone, they're clicking and they're calling. So it's important to step back and say, what does that mean for me as a post-digital marketer, as Collin calls us? If you are not spending the time to understand and attribute those calls back to the marketing efforts that you use to drive the call, clearly most of the time you're not going to get what we would consider to be attribution credit in those campaigns. And the intelligence of the campaign that drove the call is blind. You have a blind spot to that, which if you are then taking your campaigns and optimizing them only from your web form or your web click conversions, you're optimizing them with, in some cases, less than half of your data. We've got some customers that actually get 90% of their leads from phone calls. So it could be as much as 90% of your leads you're blind to. If that's the case, you're certainly allocating your budget potentially in less effective channels, less effective campaigns. And when you're trying to generate your ROI from a standpoint of return and justifying your budget, you're calculating your ROI with less than you are getting in reality in conversion. So when you're in fact able to track those calls that are made, including the website, you're actually getting to a truer measure of cost per lead, your ROI, your ROAS. It's much more accurate when you're using that data to calculate your returns. In addition to the fact that your metrics are probably a little off, you want to make sure that you're able to allocate your spend to the kinds of calls that are actually generating conversions. So when you're looking at the ability to set up call attribution, you want that capability of understanding not only did I get a call, but was it a good call? If it is a good call, I want to spend more on that. If it's a bad call, I want to spend less on that. So in the world of call attribution, each call is not equal. You want to have the insights from that call to understand the customer's journey, and is that in fact ending up being what you want to, or you want the ideal experience from that customer journey. In order to optimize that, you want the ability to take that call information and the insights from that call and integrate those with systems you're already using to make those optimizing decisions. And there are a number of them out there. These are just a few examples. But it's important for you to take what you're already using in terms of your ad tech, MarTech stack and get this data and insight from this data into those tools that you're already using. In addition to having the ability to manage your costs and improve your costs, you want to kind of consider the journey, the actual consumer's journey. If the call, based on the marketing source, can be routed to a different place, then you have that capability of maximizing the experience and or maximizing the value you get out of that call. At the same time, you want the person receiving the call to get as much information about where it's coming from, so they're in a better position to have those conversations with your callers. On the calls, when you get them, you want the ability to actually research and gain insights from the conversation. But we all know that you're not going to be able to sit down and listen to thousands and thousands of calls. So you want the capability of directing which calls that you really want to listen to, and where in the call that you would hear what you're interested in. What words do the callers use? You can use that information for building more keywords or adding more keywords in your paid search campaigns. Do the agents that you're using follow scripts or follow their guidelines? When you're doing promotions in the digital space, are they having an impact? And you can hear those things in the conversations if in fact you have tools to help you get to that insight. Keyword spotting is a perfect example of how you might use something like this. We have a customer who's a national home service provider. They wanted to get a list of every call from their paid search campaigns that was going into a Chicago office where in fact the caller uses the word appointment. And the ability to generate the list of those calls that qualify for your criteria, it's important that you're able to do that so that in fact you can drill down and get to the exact call set in fact that you want to listen to. So it's important for two things. One, to measure what happens when you get those calls and track that back to the campaigns that are driving it. The other is to understand the insights from the conversations that you have so that you can, in fact, improve that consumer's journey. And from that, I'm going to turn this over to Kelly, who is going to talk a little bit about strategies as it relates to digital channels. Kelly?
Great, thanks Susan. So I'm going to go over some specific strategies in Facebook, display, and search on how to drive calls and customers. So we're going to start first with Facebook. So what are some tips that we can use in our Facebook campaigns to really get consumers to our site and call? So we talked about Facebook being primarily mobile, It's actually the #1 most used app according to ComScore data this year. And so some ways to get consumers' attention, because Facebook has a lot of ads and a lot of personal information, right, is to use incentives, use promotions that will entice customers to actually get to your landing page and then drive a call conversion from your landing page. This also works really great for your retargeting campaigns. If you know what page they hit or what the product was that they were calling about prior, you can actually retarget them with a specific promo around that product, whether it's the automobile, a specific resort, or if they're looking for some specific learning campaigns, right? So that's one good tip. Targeting smartphone users near your location. So this ad type is actually specific only to mobile, but you can do radius campaigns within Facebook and really drive people to either in-store or the call now, which is a really great option for your hyper-local targeted campaigns. And it really speaks to that specific consumer, right? Consumers expect a location to be within a specific distance. Insurance, financial, hotel, automotive, senior care, retail are all some examples that these campaigns work really strong, and you can use hyper-local content to really drive in-store and calls. Video ads, another great way to grab attention, similar to the promos and offers. Shoppers that view videos are actually 1.81 times more likely to purchase than non-video viewers. And video is becoming more and more prominent in our social media channels, so make sure you're using some short-form video to really capture your customers' attention that will drive a conversion. And I talked a little bit about local awareness ads. Facebook actually lets you use a call now button in the call to action section. Again, this is specific to your local targeted campaigns, and you can do up to a 50-mile radius. So you can actually drive people to call directly from the ad and really capture that attention and get the people who want to raise their hand to talk to your brand directly in contact with the brand. So now some display tips. So we really talk about display being a branding tool, and it definitely is. But the more and more we serve display ads on our mobile devices, as that's where the consumers are, we want to be in front of them. And the ads are taking up more space on a smartphone than they would on just a desktop, right? So really think about testing different call to actions in your ads. So include the call CTA, and you can actually do a click-to-call ad type in your display campaigns on mobile. Also offer an incentive, so very much similar to your Facebook campaigns. Make sure that you're offering an incentive for them to act and to call your brand. Again, a really good ad type for retargeting as well. On to retargeting. We're targeting past website users. So this is really where I urge marketers to get as specific as possible and really segment your retargeting consumers or your retargeted visitors, right? So that you know what pages they looked at on your site. If they called your brand already, use the conversation insights that Susan was talking about to really figure out what product that they're looking for. Are they in further down the funnel, and retarget them, again, with specific promo offers that will drive a call to actually convert. So really use hyper-focused targeting in your creative to match the audience at their need. And use your call data to target audiences likely to call. So this is a really good prospecting tool. Prospecting is often more of the branding play, but you can do such strong things with your prospecting efforts. So if you have a base of customers already, you've got a lot of data on them. And so we all know that they have email addresses, but they also have call data. And so if you can use that data to really build lookalike audiences to find more high-value customers. So it's a really strong tactic for marketers to use and utilize more and more of their customer data in their CRM tool to really feed their DMPs and bid up accordingly so that you can really drive those purchase-ready audiences. And again, similar to Facebook, a lot of these strategies are kind of similar across the channels. But in display, you can use hyper-local targeted ads. So again, this is an example ad where there's a promo, there's also a phone number, and you'll notice that it's a local phone number. And the reason is because local phone numbers are seeing up to 3 times as many calls as toll-free numbers. Display really lets you target specific geos. You can target at a specific time of day. So use all of your data at your disposal to really serve up creative that is specific to the audience in their purchase cycle. So let's move on to mobile search. Again, another huge channel that is driving clicks or driving calls from search campaigns. Using call extensions. Use call extensions to drive calls and bookings. 70% of mobile searchers have used the call button to engage with their business. Google actually tells us that ads with ad extensions are likely to get 8% more clicks versus ads without any type of ad extension. So just by including these types of call extensions and site links and location extensions on your mobile search ads, you're really allowing the customer to find exactly what they're looking for, get in touch with your brand when they're on the go. So make sure you're using these tools at your disposal. They're the same cost as a click. And optimize your search campaigns for local. So another really good hyper-targeted local campaign. Again, make sure you're using local phone numbers. Use call-centric ad language. Make sure to, again, use your location extensions. Really make sure that all of your ad copy is specific to that geo-target. Google makes this very easy for marketers using Google My Business. So make sure your campaigns are set up appropriately, and then you can bid up and reallocate budget to the campaigns that are driving the most calls. And that's really the benefit of having all of this data in your AdWords, is to make sure that you are pushing budget to the campaigns, to the keywords that you're going to get the highest ROI. Again, make sure to use a local phone number. I always tell customers or people who I'm talking with to put on their customer hat, right? If you are you're using your mobile device to find a business and you see that it's a 1-800 number, your mind just goes to the thought that you're getting connected to a call center that's not the exact location that you want. So make sure you're using a local number to give that perception. Even if that perception or even if that phone number does go through some type of routing on the back end, the customer thinks that they are getting in touch with the business right away. So no matter what that routing is on the back end, so long as it's connecting with the exact location, you're really doing your customers and your campaigns a good justice. And drive calls directly from search ads with call-only ads. So this is a really great ad type whenever you have a large sales team on your back end that has been trained to really drive sales with specific messaging and conversations, right? A conversation will get to revenue much quicker than somebody filling out a form and then getting a call back whenever they're not in that mindset anymore. So really using the call-only ad is great to capture the customer when they're in that mindset. The other really good time to use this is think about, again, the activity on a mobile device. If there is a lot of form fields that they need to fill out to actually convert, doing a call-only ad where they can give that information while they're on the go, just over the phone, is going to drive a lot higher conversion rate than just a long form on the back end. So really make sure to utilize these ads at your disposal, specifically for the service industry. I've run a lot of campaigns in my past like this, and the service side is really strong in conversions here. Again, make sure to be hyper-local in your targeting as well. So targeting and landing page optimization, some additional strategies. So we talked about 3 different channels. Don't forget about cross-channel strategies. I mentioned some of these before, but just by using your call data, you can actually retarget callers who have not yet purchased. You can build lookalike audiences to really get new high-value customers. And then also make sure that whenever you're running these campaigns, you're not wasting any dollars, right? So if you have current customers calling your brand, you don't want to be retargeting them with specific acquisition messaging that's focused on new customers. So make sure you're using your budget in the best way possible and serving up ads and bidding according to each individual audience. And don't forget to optimize your landing page. So this has always been a struggle really for the past 3 years. A lot of times the landing pages are out of the digital team's control, but it can't be that way anymore, not with the growth of mobile. So make sure that you're including a clickable phone number. Make sure that when they're on their mobile device, they have an opportunity to get a hold of your brand on every page, on the scroll, right? Have a click-to-call button on your landing page. And even test the call now CTA, right? So if somebody clicks through an ad and they haven't called yet, they're doing a little bit more research, let them scroll around a little bit if they want to do more discovery, and then they can call on whichever page they're ready to call. But I urge you to know that data because that will fuel a landing page test. And so if you know that on the 3rd page of their journey they finally made that call, you can actually test that landing page as the destination for that specific ad and see if your conversion rate increases. So those are my main tips. I do have one customer success story. One of the world's largest automotive makers, obviously they drive leads to 1,300 different dealerships and really focus on using digital efforts to do that, right? Paid search, display, paid social, SEO, and they need to get leads to their dealers. So they really need to prove how their dollars were driving revenue. So what they did is that they used call attribution, obviously with DialogTech, and we integrated all of that call data with their analytics tool. In this case, it was Adobe Analytics, which then integrated to their CRM. So now they were able to know the channel, the ad, the keyword that was driving not only any web form, but also phone calls. And they were able to use that data to really calculate their true CPA, and then they were able to optimize for that. So they were able to optimize their website experience to drive more calls. They were able to optimize their keywords, their ad copy, their device level bidding, right? We can bid by device. And so by having all of this data and the full customer journey, they were really able to improve their ROI and optimize all of their digital efforts to show that they were driving leads. And so they saw tremendous results. They learned that calls were converting to vehicle sales 3 times more often than web leads. They are figuring out which campaigns was driving the call volume. They're seeing a steady increase in calls, and they even were able to build out trends, right? So we all operate on trended data. We know year over year when different peaks are, when different slower times are, and so you allocate your budget, you forecast your budget, and you start to forecast revenue. And by having all of this data, they were really able to optimize their campaigns to get the optimum results for all of their dollars. With that, if you guys would like a demo of the DialogTech platform, I urge you to please contact us. And at this time, I think we will take any questions. I think we have a few questions. So Brendan's going to help field them again.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. And just really quickly, thank you so much to everyone who presented here today. So we have a lot of questions in here, only a few minutes left, so we'll try to get through these pretty quickly. Let's see here. So it's hard to choose. Actually, there's a question here, and I'll throw this one over, I think, to Kelly about retargeting. And the question specifically is, how can you retarget without first capturing someone's email address?
So that's a great way to retarget, but if you have not retargeted, one, you can do a little bit more of a blind retargeting. So if they just visit your website, your pixel data will at least show what pages that they visited. So if you know a specific product was visited, you can retarget them with that ad. Or if they called your brand and they never actually filled out a form, you can actually use that call data to then retarget them knowing that they called. Maybe they talked about, again, about a specific product, a specific location, and you can use all of that data to retarget them with specific display ads and bid up and down according to what you're finding is converting the best.
Great, thank you so much. Another question here, a lot of questions about click-to-call in general, sort of, is there an app you need to install on your phone for click-to-call? Which marketing channels offer click-to-call? And so Kelly, do you want to maybe tackle that one too?
Sure. So click-to-call is actually in all of the channels I just mentioned. So you can use click-to-call on Facebook, in Bing ads, in Google ads, in display. And to do display, you do need to work with a call attribution provider. DialogTech can actually help you set up click-to-call campaigns. In AdWords, in Bing Ad Center, and in Facebook, all of those are part of the Ad Extensions tab. And so you can actually add them to your campaign or at the ad group level directly from your AdWords or Bing Ad Center user interface. For Facebook, you actually do need to run only a local awareness ad is the only way that you can run click-to-call in Facebook. So those are the three things, or those are the different ways that you can run click-to-call. It's not a specific app. Oh, and I just saw another email. What about click-to-call and email? So that's similar to landing page. You have to build that into your HTML or whatever platform that you're using to send out email, but you can include a click-to-phone number in your email, which is a really good question because 66% of emails are viewed in a mobile device. So that's a really good tip as well to do it in email.
Awesome. My question here in general about click-to-call and call attribution is click-to-call much more applicable to products that are service-based or products that require some explanation, i.e. insurance or finance? I don't know, Susan, if you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I think the quickest answer to that is click-to-call can be used and call attribution can be used across verticals. The decision points usually are for a brand to decide if they're going to use a call attribution vendor is usually either how much you're investing in your spend and if in fact an improvement in your return is worth that additional investment to have call attribution, or if the purchase value is high enough. So it's really not just an insurance or a considered purchase. I think it's across the board. We did get a question, is DialogTech available in Europe? Yes, absolutely. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, so one other question too, this is, looks like it's more of a general insight question, but to what extent can your click-to-call intelligence be extrapolated in a B2B environment?
Yeah, so I actually run B2B campaigns, and I have click-to-call on all of my ads, both landing pages as well as mobile ads, and display ads. So what I find is that my display ads have actually seen an increased click-through rate. I've done a complete A/B test on display ads click-to-call in B2B, and what I found was an 8% increase in click-through rate just by having the different call to action, call now. And it's not just you have to click the ad, but then you'll also have to click to call now. So it's similar to just the call extensions in search, and your landing page still populates on the back end, so they can still do any type of discovery or research. What I would say though is make sure that you A, have a strong voicemail set up if you're running any type of off hours, or B, get them in touch with a salesperson automatically, specifically if you're doing any type of prospecting or retargeting during your business hours, and then bid up during your business hours for B2B. I find that anything that came in more later hours or weekend hours wasn't the quality that we were looking for. So make sure you allocate your budget based on the hours that you're really available to have somebody have some communication with that brand.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Everyone, thank you so much for your questions. If we didn't get to your question, don't worry. We'll be sending an email out to everyone with a link to the presentation, and at that point you will have our information, DialogTech. So if you need to then follow up on a specific question or want to hear more about DialogTech and the service we provide, you'll be able to reach us then. Thank you everyone very much, and have a great afternoon.